everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, episode 25. Before we begin this week's podcast, really quickly, I just want to give a very special shout out to my friend over on YouTube called The Movie Void, because he just celebrated his 2-year anniversary / birthday channel thing on Thursday, the 21st. I don't know when you're listening to this, but whenever you're listening to this, he celebrated his 2-year anniversary on March 21st, 2019, which was a Thursday. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say besides, congratulations. I think that, the fact that the Movie Void has been chugging along for 2 years is great. And I guess for anyone who hasn't, heard of him or hasn't checked him out, all I can really say is you're missing out, I think you're really missing out. I think the Movie Void is a great guy. I think he's really talented. I think his reviews on indie films and horror movies is, they're really well done. They're very well put together. I think his I Hate Sundays vlog, where he, shows us about his life and he shows us what he's up to in LA and the different projects he's working on. I think that's great. And overall, the Movie Void is a awesome guy. He's always been very supportive of me. And so, yeah, I just want to take a quick moment before starting this podcast to, talk about him a little bit, suggest them to you guys so you guys can check him out, and to just say that, happy 2-year anniversary, if YouTube allows it. I hope the Movie Void has many more years of content to come. And yeah, I'm just so proud of him. I think that the fact that he's already reached 2 years is incredible. And, like I said, guys, check him out, show him some love. He's just an awesome guy. I think he has some really good content, and I definitely think he deserves as much praise as he can get. So, this isn't a content creator spotlight. This is different. This is more of a little shout out. But yeah, Movie Void, if you're listening to this, you're great, man. I wish you the best. I hope you have much more success to come in the future. And for anyone else, check him out. I think he's a great guy. I think he deserves as much attention as he can get. So there you go. But yeah, with that out of the way, I gotta admit, I think this is gonna be a pretty meaty podcast. I feel like there's a lot of news stories compared to last week, and I had kind of a full week. So, without further ado, let's dive into my week, I guess. And as always, I'd like to start by talking about the manga that I checked out. And yeah, for anyone who was here last week, I said I had started a little manga called Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer. And sure enough, since last week I've been reading more into it. Out of 65 chapters, I want to say I've read, I think I left off on 30, I want to say. Either 30 or maybe a little bit past 30. And yeah, Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer is a very strange manga, but it's been pretty enjoyable so far, For anyone who missed last week, basically, Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer, it's about this, antisocial, nerdy college student that wakes up one day, and there's this talking lizard that says that it's a night, and it says that the world is under attack, and the lizard says that, they need to team up to help save the world. And at first, the college student doesn't believe the lizard. He thinks he's going crazy. But, the lizard explains more about what's happening and says that they have to team up with this princess, and they have to gather all of the beast knights together, and they need to fight this, mage called Animus who wants to destroy the world. And eventually, the college student, he runs into the princess, who is actually his next door neighbor. And, she's apparently the reincarnation of this celestial being called Anima, who's been fighting Animus for a long time, I guess. And, the weird part is that she says that she is going to help save the world, but it's not as, wholesome as you would think. Basically, the reason she wants to help save the world is that she wants to kind of keep the world to herself and destroy it when she sees fit, because basically she has that if I can't have you, nobody can sort of mentality, and she loves the earth so much that she thinks it's a shame that it's going to keep living without her, once she dies. And so yeah, she wants to save the world so she can destroy it when she sees fit. And because our main character, we find out, is a bit of a nihilist, and he's kind of suffered in the past, he agrees to help her. So definitely a weird premise. And since the last time I read, I read more about him progressing with his powers, him and the princess fighting more of the like monster golem things. They recruited all of the Beast Knights together, like they gather them all up. And so, that's really interesting, seeing all these different people with their different animal companions, and their different powers, that's pretty cool. And yeah, so far it's just a really weird manga. I don't really know what to say about it. Like, I'm enjoying it, but it's just really weird. Like, it's kind of convoluted, but I really like it. I think it's pretty cool so far. I think it's really interesting seeing how our like two main characters aren't exactly like heroes, they're kind of like anti-heroes because they want to save the world, but then they kind of want to like, for their own selfish like desires. So I mean, not really anti-heroes. I guess they're more of like villain protagonists, I guess you can say. But it's really interesting, really enjoying it so far. I think it's kind of cool to see all the different people with like their different animal companions and all the different powers. That kind of reminds me of like a few different things, like kind of reminds me like of Power Rangers, like especially like the first season where everyone like transforms based on like their, like guardian mech thing. And it kind of reminds me of that anime from like a few seasons back about the Chinese Zodiac characters who were like fighting each other. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. I mean, I don't know. There's like a lot of different influences I can see. Or maybe it's the opposite, I guess, since this came first. But you get what I mean. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. I guess I recommend it. I'm not too sure. Since, like I said, it is kind of convoluted. But I've enjoyed it so far. I think it's really interesting. And I'm definitely excited to finish it, Right now, I'm about like halfway done. So hopefully by next time or maybe the time after that, I can finish it. But I'm enjoying it. It's really weird, really kooky, but it's interesting. So there you go. When it comes to anime, for the most part, I've basically been chugging along with the anime I've talked about in like previous weeks, So there's not really anything to say about those quite yet. I mean, I know a lot of the anime are ending either like next week or the week after. So I am really looking forward to just talking about them like as a whole, my thoughts on them, if they're worth watching, that sort of thing. In the meantime, I did watch something that I had been pretty excited to watch. And I'm of course talking about the High Score Girl OVAs, or as they're known, High Score Girl Extra Stage. And now I know for sure I have talked about High Score Girl in the past. I don't know what episode it was. It must have been, one of like the first episodes of the podcast. But basically for anyone who, hasn't heard of the show or doesn't know about it, High Score Girl is this really fun, really cute anime about basically this slacker kid that he loves to play video games and he loves to spend time in arcades, playing all sorts of stuff, especially like fighting games. And basically, he's, like I said, he's a slacker. And so no one is surprised to see him, in arcades. However, what surprises him is that one day while he's at the arcade, he sees like his school's like most like rich and like most like proper girl, like from his class. She's at the arcade. And not only is she playing, but she's really good. Like, she knows her way around every fighting game, every beat 'em up, that sort of thing. And at first, their relationship's kind of rocky because he beats her at, like, Street Fighter using, like, some really scummy tactics that, like, piss her off. So at first, she doesn't really like him, but as, they keep seeing each other at the arcade, and as her life gets, like, more and more difficult because of, like, expectations, and they expect her to just... I don't know. I mean, they expect her to just be like very prim and proper and not spend time in arcades playing video games. And she's supposed to always be studying, that sort of thing. And of course, she runs away to the arcades because she just loves playing video games. And I don't know, basically, as she keeps running away to arcades and as she always sees them there, they get like this little friendship going and they kind of bond over video games and stuff. And not only that, but there's also like a bit of like a little romance between them that starts up. Because, I don't know, I mean, just like, you can say like them going to the different arcades and stuff is kind of like little dates, and I don't know, the way he always like treats her to junk food and all sorts of stuff. I don't know, I guess it's just really cute. That girl, she never talks. She mumbles and stuff, but you never hear her say like one word. But the main character, like, he somehow always knows what she's thinking, and, he always like, I don't know, like, that's what makes it so cute. Like, he always knows what she's trying to say without her talking and stuff. And so I guess that's part of like the romance too, that he just understands her so well. But anyway, like I said, part of it's the romance. The other part that I think is really cool is that it uses like licensed video games in the show. Like you see them playing like Street Fighter, and it's like actual like footage, you know, so to speak. And they talk about like actual techniques. And, you know, same thing with like King of Fighters and like Fatal Fury, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. And so I just think this show's really cool, because you have this like relationship between the two characters. You have a mix of like arcade and like early home console video games, that sort of thing. And so I don't know, when this anime first came out, it was one of my favorite that season, because like I said, I just think it's really fun with all the video game references, and it's really cute between with the relationship between the two main characters. And basically when the anime ended, you know, it ends in a spot where you can tell there's more to the story. And so when I heard there was going to be OVAs, I was like really excited to watch them. And so sure enough, watch the 3 OVAs. Basically, it's the same as if it was episodes 13, 14, and 15. And, you know, nothing too special. Like I said, I feel like they basically could have been a part of the anime season, but it was still just really fun returning to that world, getting to see the characters again, getting to see their relationship grow more, seeing more video game references, that sort of thing. And I don't know, I had a really fun time watching the OVAs. And right after that, I found out there's going to be a second season. It's supposed to come out like October 2019. So I'm excited for that. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, if you like cute little romances and you like video games and you like early like arcade fighters and like all that sort of, you know, stuff, I think you'll love this anime. I think it's awesome. And so, yeah, I mean, would I recommend these 3 OVAs? Definitely would. While a lot of OVAs usually feel like filler that don't really push the story forward, like I said, these feel like they could have been 3 episodes of the anime. They feel right at home with the rest of the series, and they definitely give us some plot that, you know, I'm excited to see where the story goes with season 2. So I enjoyed it. I recommend it. If it sounds like it's your thing, check it out. I think this anime definitely deserves some attention. So there you go. Moving on, I did indeed watch a movie this week, but I'll admit that it was a movie that I didn't really like, alright? Even though a lot of people have been praising this movie, personally, I found it to be kind of boring, and I felt like it was kind of a waste of time. And so yeah, the movie I'm talking about is Captain Marvel. And, you know, that's not to say that I hated it. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I feel like at this point, you know, Marvel knows how to make movies that, like, even their worst movies aren't like, you know, they don't feel like insultingly bad. You know, they're nowhere near the level of like past DC movies. But still, I just thought the movie was like really boring, and I thought it was a big waste of time. And I'm honestly pretty surprised people liked it, you know? I don't want to go too in depth because I do plan to do like a review on it a little bit later. And I do feel like sometimes, I don't know, I feel like for people who like listen to my podcast and check out my reviews, a lot of them kind of keep hearing the same content, because sometimes stuff I talk about on the podcast, I turn into reviews. So I'm gonna try to avoid that this time. But, you know, just to talk about it a little bit, I just felt like Captain Marvel, it was just so boring, you know? Like, people say Superman's boring because he's like really overpowered. I mean, at least Superman has a variety of powers and things he does. Like, he has super strength, he can fly, he has, you know, laser vision, he has freezing breath, you know, that sort of thing. Captain Marvel, basically all she has is that she fights good and that she can, you know, make beams, like energy beam things out of her hands. And that's basically it. And even then, she barely even really uses her powers. Like, I feel like she doesn't really use them until like the 3rd act. You know, up until then, basically all she does is, you know, she mostly just uses like hand-to-hand combat, you know? And I don't know, I mean, like, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, not very charismatic, so that kind of ruins the movie for me too. And like I said, the movie just feels like a waste of time. Like, I honestly feel like I could have skipped this movie and went straight to next month's Avengers movie. And, you know, I could have just seen her show up and say, I'm Captain Marvel. And I feel like I wouldn't have missed anything. Because they don't add anything or show anything about her character that adds anything to the MCU, honestly. Like, they do add, you know, to be fair, they do talk about, you know, some of like the space stuff, and they do, you know, discuss some of like the alien species, that sort of thing. Like, I do feel like that's gonna like come out later, you know, in the MCU. But when it comes to like the overall like Thanos story and like what part she'll play in fighting Thanos, I literally got nothing new. So that was disappointing. So, like I said, I won't talk about it too much, but personally, I thought Captain Marvel, like I said, it was boring. I think her powers are boring. I thought Brie Larson was uncharismatic. I thought that it felt like a waste of time. Didn't really hype me up for Avengers Endgame. I feel like it's like she could have just shown up. It would have been fine. However, Samuel L. Jackson, I don't think I've ever seen him phone in any performance he's done. His part was great. He basically carried the movie. And I mean, there was some fun stuff. All the Marvel movies always have some sort of lighthearted comedy. I did have a few laughs. But besides that, didn't really like the movie. Honestly, I would say just rent it later or whatever. Or just skip it entirely. I feel like when Captain Marvel shows up in Avengers, that'll probably be good enough. But yeah, I was disappointed. So I don't know. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend it. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. But personally, I didn't like the movie, so. Finally, when it comes to gaming, didn't play anything too major this week. The only thing I really checked out were 2 little indie titles that were super cheap on the Nintendo Switch eShop. Basically, I was just on there browsing, seeing what kind of games have been added, what kind of games were, on sale, that sort of thing. And I noticed that there was these 2 games. One was 29 cents and the other one was 24 cents. And, I've seen these games on the eShop for sale, in the past, but never for this cheap. And I've been curious about them for a while because, why are they so cheap? I don't know. I was just curious, I guess. And so my curiosity got the better of me, downloaded the games, and I gotta admit, they're not too bad. The games I'm talking about are Frederic, The Resurrection of Music, and Frederic 2, which is like the little sequel. And basically, they're fine. They're these little rhythm games in which you play as this alternate universe version of Frederic. I believe his name's Chopin. Is that how you say his name? Frederic Chopin? But, he's like a famous composer or whatever. And like I said, they're fine. Basically, it's this weird, kooky story about he's futuristic and he's basically battling other people in music battles, and it's a rhythm game. And I thought the games were fine. I'm surprised they're so cheap because I don't feel like they're disasters. I feel like when a game is that cheap, it's because it's a disaster. And so I'm surprised to see them basically being given away for free. But I enjoyed them. I wouldn't say they're the best games in the world, but I still thought they were fun. And I recommend them, I guess. If you want something cheap to add to your Switch library, and if you like rhythm games, then check them out. Why not? And yeah, with that being said, while I didn't do too much in terms of gaming, I mean, there's so many games out there I want to play. I mean, whatever. I still think that it was a pretty good week. I think it was pretty balanced. And yeah, with that being said, I think we should transfer over to the news. The first news story that I want to talk about, I mean, this week we have a lot of different news stories, but the biggest news story this week, and one that's really weird, is that Google announced Google Stadia, which is a streaming platform that doesn't require any new hardware. Now, I don't know how many of you watched the little press conference. I don't know how many of you have any details on this. But yeah, basically earlier this week, at some point, Google had this conference and people had been expecting them to announce, some sort of a new home console or something, because definitely it seems like they want to get into the gaming market. And of course, Google surprised everybody when they announced Google Stadia. And I'll admit, I don't even really understand what it is. Because, like I said, it's supposed to be a streaming platform, but it doesn't require any new hardware. So, unfortunately, I gotta admit, I'm kind of ignorant when it comes to what it really is. But from what I understand, basically what it's gonna be a streaming platform sort of thing that's going to help you really go, seamlessly from video to game and back and forth and stuff. Something they really showed and really talked about is that let's say you're watching some sort of a YouTube video about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Supposedly, if you're watching it and you're interested in the game, you can click a play button and you'll be able to just start playing the game without, downloading or anything. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work, but I don't know. It just sounds totally science fiction-y to me. I mean, they promise that basically you'll be able to play games in 1080p, 60 frames per second. So, I mean, if it's hard enough to stream and upload and download videos and stuff, I don't know how they plan to allow players to just stream games. So, at such a high fidelity. I don't get it. And I don't really get what they mean by not needing any hardware. Like basically what they show is like, let's say I turn over to my computer right now and I'm using Google Chrome. And I guess like I like a game. And so I try to like start playing the game. Apparently all I have to do is plug in my like USB controller and I can just start playing. Like I just don't get it. I don't get how this, I mean, I don't know. It all sounds really science fiction to me. Like I said, I feel really ignorant talking about it because I've tried to look it up and I've tried to look up information. I just don't get it. But I mean, who knows? Either one of two things. Either it's going to like do really well and it's going to be like the next step in gaming where we're going to start streaming and integrating from like videos to like game and back again flawlessly, or this is going to crash terribly. Which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised because I feel like a lot of people don't have very good internet. So I don't really see this working. But, you know, regardless, it sounds interesting. Until then, let's move on. Now, when it comes to stuff that I do understand, earlier this week, another big thing that happened is that Nintendo had another like little Nindies showcase, which is basically where they talk about like indie games coming to the system. And, you know, they showed quite a few games, some of which are available right now. And it was a pretty cool conference. You know, I thought it was really cool. Some of the games, I definitely want to play them. However, there were two very big takeaways from this Nindies showcase, the first of which is that Cuphead is coming to Switch on April 18th. Now, I've been excited to play Cuphead. I think the game looks awesome. I actually played it a little bit at Phoenix Comic-Con because they had like an actual like arcade style booth. So I played a bit of the game, but I've been really looking forward to buying it at some point. And, you know, unfortunately, I hadn't been able to because it's an Xbox exclusive and I don't have a Xbox. But yeah, the fact that it's coming to Nintendo Switch is really exciting. It's coming really soon. And I don't know, it's also really exciting, you know, like the fact that Microsoft is allowing this game to come to Switch when it's supposed to be an exclusive. Like, I think that's really cool. And so, like I said, I'm just really excited for like not only the news, I think the partnership between Microsoft and Nintendo is like super exciting. I've been wanting to play the game forever, you know, I've been wanting to buy it. And so I'm excited to play it. So there you go. If you're excited to play it, you now will be able to own it on Switch on April 18th, which like I said is super soon. The other piece of news that was really exciting from this showcase and that I'm still like really mind blown by was Cadence of Hyrule. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, you know, basically they started the game announcement by showing footage of Crypt of the NecroDancer and showing the main character, you know, just talking and stuff. And then from there, they opened up to showing like a Hyrule map. And a lot of people at that point, they're pretty excited because they're like, oh, cool, you know, Crypt of the NecroDancer is going to get some DLC and it's going to have to do with Hyrule. Like, that's fun. But then they took a step further by showing that Link and Zelda are playable characters. And then it's not just a, you know, like Zelda DLC, it's its own original game. And this is exciting for a few reasons. Not only is it exciting because they, ooh, you know, cool, new game, that's fun. But this is really exciting news because this is the first time, I mean, as far as I think I know, that Nintendo allows an indie studio to like use their IP, you know? Like, yes, we have had Nintendo be a little more open in recent years with like Ubisoft. Like they allowed them to make a game, you know, Mario and Rabbids, and then they allowed them to put Star Fox and, you know, Crew in Starlink. But that's like a big studio, you know? This is an indie studio. And that's really exciting because not only is it great to see Nintendo like more open in recent years, you know, teaming up with like Microsoft, teaming up with like Ubisoft, that sort of thing. But if they're allowing an indie studio to like use their characters and make like this cool new mashup game, that feels like it opens the floodgates. You know, like what's next? Like a lot of people have said like, it feels like the sky's the limit at this point, you know, like that's awesome. And so I for one am really excited. I think it's awesome how Nintendo has become very open in recent years. I'm really excited to see what they do next. And, you know, even all that aside, I'm just excited for this game because I just think it sounds really fun. And seeing that they're going to have like a Hyrule map and you can use like Link and Zelda, that sounds really fun. You know, Link, I'm used to playing as him all the time. So, I mean, that's not quite too special, but Zelda, I mean, you don't really get to play as Zelda in a lot of stuff. So seeing her attack with like magic and like spears and all sorts of stuff, that's exciting. And so yeah, I don't know how many of you are excited for this, but if you're excited for it, hopefully we get to play this soon. And like I said, hopefully that means Nintendo teams up with more people in the future. Maybe in the future we'll get more cool indie games. Only time will tell, but I'm really excited. Alrighty, moving on to our last gaming story for this week. The Walking Dead, the Telltale Series, the final season, episode 4, will launch March 26th. Now, I'll admit, I haven't kept up with this last season, apart from the news of the game being canceled and brought back, all that good stuff. I haven't followed the story at all, but I still thought that this was a news story worth telling because even if I didn't really enjoy season 3, and even though this season has been a whole mess with being canceled and brought back and all sorts of stuff, I am interested in checking it out at some point. And I just think it's really interesting to just see, the saga come to an end. Love the series or hate it, it definitely left its mark on gaming. A lot of people love that first season. It felt like it really brought something to the point and click genre. And so it's definitely interesting seeing how the story ends, I don't know. Don't really know what else to say about it. Like I said, I just thought it was a story worth sharing because, I don't know, I feel like I've talked about this series a lot on the podcast. First talking about how it was canceled, talking about, Telltale Games shutting down, talking about it being brought back, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I just feel like I kind of owed that to the series, but will it be good? Will it be bad? Who knows? I think it's nice to see it get a proper, finale, and it'll be interesting to see how it ends. So there you go. Alrighty, moving over to movie news. This news story is one that I had planned to talk about last week, but I kind of found out about it really late. I found out about it after really, sitting down and recording the podcast. But Disney has rehired James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, I kind of expected that, honestly. I think they'd be really foolish to not rehire him, especially when a lot of the cast really wanted him back. A lot of them were kind of willing to leave the project if they didn't bring him back. What's interesting to read though is number one, if you read the article, it says he was actually rehired months ago, but they just felt they wanted to wait until the time was right to talk about it. So I think that's kind of funny. I feel like a lot of people had said, honestly, they wouldn't be surprised if he found out he got rehired the same week, and this whole time he's just been keeping quiet about it. I think that'd be kind of funny. And number two, I think it's an interesting story because, in the meantime that we had heard he was fired, we had heard that he had moved on to directing Suicide Squad Part 2. And the interesting part is that he is still doing that, So he's doing Suicide Squad Part 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I don't know, I just think it's really interesting to see this one director working for both studios at the same time with, I don't know, movies that are similar, they're not super similar, but I still think they're similar enough because it's two big ensemble casts. And I don't know. I think he's a cool director. I think the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies have been pretty fun. So I look forward to watching them, That's all I guess I really have to say. Transferring over to my next piece of news, which is still about James Gunn. It's interesting because he's still directing the Suicide Squad Part 2, but apparently it's not really a sequel. It's more of a reboot, which, I don't know. If you read the article, it's just really weird. Basically, it's a reboot because he's getting rid of 90% of the cast, which is weird. He's still keeping Harley Quinn, and he's still technically keeping Deadshot, but Will Smith isn't coming back. Instead, they're recasting him with Idris Elba. So I don't know. The whole thing's kind of a mess. I feel like makes sense. This is DC. They make a big mess of a lot of their movies, but if there's anyone who can fix Suicide Squad, it might be James Gunn. So I'm interested to see what he does with it, Will it still be a trash fire? Maybe, but I mean, James Gunn's pretty talented, so maybe it'll be less of a trash fire. So there you go. Moving on, I thought this next news story was pretty interesting. It's something I've been pretty excited for. Earlier this week, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters, they got together and they made a little video announcing that Bill and Ted Part 3 has an official summer 2020 release date. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Bill and Ted are these old school movies man, at this point they came out quite a while ago. The first one was called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The second one was called Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And basically there are these movies about these two slackers played by, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters. And there are these two slackers in high school that apparently they're destined to, in the future, play this rock song that's going to bring forth a utopia. I mean, it's super silly. And so in one, they have to travel through time in a phone booth in order to get A's on their, I want to say it was a history paper. And so they go all over the place talking to different historical figures. And the second one, it was all about them, dying and having to beat death at different games to come back to life, which was super silly. And I don't know, the movies are really dumb, they're really silly, but I still really enjoy them. I think they're really fun. And they've been talking about making a Bill and Ted Part 3 for a while. It's been 30 years since the first two movies came out. And, for one reason or another, they couldn't do it. Whether it was they didn't have the money for it, or, Keanu Reeves was busy, that sort of thing. But, finally, they've sat down, they've said there's a part 3 coming, and I don't know. I mean, a lot of movies, it feels really weird when they make, a new part years later. Honestly, I think everyone should temper their expectations. It's probably not going to be the best movie in the world, let's be realistic. But as long as it's still fun, and as long as it still has, the feeling of the first two, I think it'll be fine. Honestly, I think the fact that they've waited this long and they've been really working on a good script, and I mean, Keanu Reeves is a pretty big actor at this point. I feel like he wouldn't really, sign on unless he thought it's something worth his time. So I'm just hoping it's a good movie. I'm hoping it's a fun movie, and I'm looking forward to it, I don't know how many of you out there have any love for the Bill and Ted movies, but if you have any love for the series, keep an eye out for that. I know I will. Let's move on. Moving on to TV news, Stranger Things got quite a bit of, information and stuff this week. First of all, one thing that we got was the release date. According to the information in the article and in the trailer, which I'll talk about in a moment, it seems that Stranger Things Season 3 is coming to Netflix on July 4th. Another thing that we learned is, like I said, they showed the trailer, and the trailer, it's pretty interesting. It seems basically what it shows is that it's been some time since season 2, and the kids have really settled into their lives. They're trying to live normally. It shows 11's part of the group. That girl from last season, Max, she's hanging out with everybody. I don't know. It just shows them trying to live their lives normally. They all look older, definitely. And I guess, they think that their troubles are over until another monster shows up, that sort of thing. And it's kind of hard to explain everything that happens in the trailer. You kind of have to watch it for yourself. I don't know if this is going to be the last season. I mean, if it is, it would make sense. But it definitely looks like it has to do a lot with growing up. Maybe, falling apart a little bit, that sort of thing. But looks cool. Looks interesting. All the characters, it's fun to see them come back. And I'm looking forward to it, So July 4th, season 3 is coming. If you love the show, look forward to it. And, speaking of which, I guess I could have talked about this in the video game section, but also launching on July 4th is Stranger Things 3, The Game, which they talked about it during the Video Game Awards. It's basically this pixely type adventure game. And yeah, it's coming out the same day as the show. So I'm looking forward to both these things. I think Stranger Things is a pretty interesting franchise, So I definitely want to play the game, definitely want to watch the show. And likewise, if you love the franchise, look forward to it. Finally, the last news story that I want to talk about is that apparently there's this manga called How Many Heavy Dumbbells Can You Lift that is getting a TV anime adaptation. Now, this manga and anime coming up seems interesting for a few reasons. Number one, it seems interesting because I've never really seen a weightlifting anime before. And from past experience, every time I hear about some sort of sport that I never think I'd really be interested in, when I watch the anime, I've usually been pretty pleasantly surprised, in the past, when I first heard of Welcome to the Ballroom, didn't really know what to think about it. I thought that an anime all about ballroom dancing sounded kind of silly, honestly. But, then I watched it and I ended up really loving it. I think the way the anime really gets you hyped for the sport is awesome. And another reason it's interesting is because even though it's about weightlifting, it's still about like cute girls. So I don't know, something about getting to see all these like cute girls with, lift weights and get strong and work out. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds kind of interesting, I'll be honest. And not only that, but I don't know. I looked it up. And a lot of people say that apparently the manga is really funny. Like, that caught my attention. So, I don't know. It's definitely something I want to keep an eye out for, And it feels like it's relatable, too. Like, if you read the synopsis, it says it's about this girl that loves to, like, eat snacks. And one day she decides that she's going to keep her weight. And she tries to do exercise. And this, like, classmate who's, like, super obsessed with, like, working out kind of ropes her into like joining the gym. So I can kind of, that's relatable, I feel like at some point all of us have either, decided we want to work out or we tell ourselves we're going to work out so we can keep eating snacks. And you probably have like a friend or two that's super obsessed with working out. So, that's interesting. And so I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with the source material, but from what I've heard, it seems like it's really fun. From the premise, it sounds like it's really fun. Will the anime be good? I don't know. But, if that sounds interesting to you, keep an eye out for it. Alrighty, guys. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of another news week. Hopefully, as usual, that was something interesting, something entertaining, something that you guys, caught on to and you guys are like looking forward to like checking out now, that sort of thing. But with that out of the way, I want to move on to the final part of the podcast, which is the content creator spotlight. And the content creator for this week is a little channel that I haven't been following for too long, but I still think he's a pretty good channel. His name is GrumbleGamer 18. All right. Now, as it is with some of these channels, I mean, he doesn't need my help at all. He is currently sitting at 1.7 thousand subscribers, but all the same, I want to give him a shout out. Because basically what GrumbleGamer does is that he does Let's Plays, he does unboxings, and he does, a few things here and there that are a little different. Like for instance, recently he's been playing Resident Evil 2. He's been playing through that. That's been really fun to watch. Every month, he opens up loot crates, which, I used to buy loot crates before. I think that was really fun. I unfortunately stopped because, I don't know, at some point, I think it was just one of those like financial things I decided to cut off. But, watching him open the loot crate every month is really fun. And I don't know, he's just a really interesting guy. From Let's Plays to unboxing to, miscellaneous videos about other like horror games and stuff. I think he's a lot of fun. Don't have too much to say about him. I haven't been following him for too long, but from what I've been watching, his channel's pretty fun. He seems like a really down-to-earth guy, and I'd say check him out, I think you'll like his channel, so there you go. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of another podcast. That is one more in the bag. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully you got something out of it, whether it was a new TV show you're looking forward to or a game you want to play, that sort of thing. As long as you guys are happy, I'm happy. So yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I love talking to the community. I promise I'll try to, write back when I have the time. I always do. And yeah, I guess to round things up, I can talk about where you can find me. So not only can you find me hosting the Wannabe podcast every week, you can find it on YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play Music, all that good stuff. But you can also catch me over on Twitter at wannabe_review, where I give channel updates, I retweet all sorts of memes, I retweet all sorts of like gaming news, I follow all sorts of like voice actors and YouTubers and that sort of stuff. So I don't know, I'm always trying to retweet and post interesting things, if you follow me. I promise I try to keep things interesting, so add me if you feel like it. And besides that, I'm also over on YouTube, as Wannabe Reviewer, where I do all sorts of reviews every week, whether it's anime, movies, video games, TV shows, that sort of thing. Every week, on Wednesdays, usually, I try to do some sort of review, telling you guys about something that I've recently, watched or played, and, whether I think it's worth playing or not. So check me out there. And with that being said, I'll try my very best to be back here next week for episode 26. Until then, I hope all of you have a wonderful week. And yeah, my name is Wannabe Reviewer. I'll catch you guys next time.